And Tammy mentioned that when you do things with joy, and it's something that you really love to do, you're going to do a good job. And as Tammy said, it might even be something you love so much that you would do it anyway, even if you weren't compensated. And I believe that. I believe that truly. I love what I do. And I think for someone in my position, when you stop loving what you do, it's going to show up. And maybe it's time you need to start thinking about retiring. When you stop loving what you do, it will show up. These musicians love what they do, don't you, Tony? Yeah. And you do a good job, too, and we're grateful. You do a great job. We're thankful that you love what you do. All of you. You too, Rick, even though you weren't on the stage today. All of you. All of you. It shows when you love what you do. This was, we were on a trip to Costa Rica, and Sherry's sister, Jonna took that photo of you? That's Sherry with her cap on and the butterfly on her cap. That is real. That's a real photo. Rachel Carson said, if I had influence with the good fairy, I should ask that her gift to each child in the world be a sense of wonder, so indestructible that it would last throughout life. Well, let's just claim that right now, okay? Let's reclaim our sense of wonder that we may have lost somewhere along the way. Last week I talked about what our source really is, where the source of our energy comes from, and that's directly from God. That other sources will fail. They will. Other sources are limited. But there's one source that we can go to always, that we can count on, and that's God. Jesus had a few things to say about joy. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be with you, and your joy may be full. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? So often we're not told of the things that he said that about joy. And joy is not self-centered. It's God-centered. The universe wants us to live with joy. It's not self-centered at all. I know sometimes we'll think that we need to be serious all the time. And if we're all serious, then we must be more spiritual. That's not the case. You don't necessarily need to be serious. Be lighthearted. Laugh a lot. Smile a lot. Do the things that will bring you joy. I was thinking about it as you should consider joy as your emotional investment fund, because what we send out to the world will come back to us. So be joyful, send that out into the world, and let your investment fund grow so it will continually bring joy back to you. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this slide a lot because it's, I just want to show it to you, though, so you'll know what I'm talking about when I talk about bringing your emotions up from the bottom. And the bottom is where we feel powerless. We're in the depths of depression and despair, don't know what in the world to do with that. And that happens. That can happen so easily. The depths of depression and despair, fear, grief, overwhelm, anger, But you see, they say even anger is a little bit better than powerlessness because at least you're feeling. And when you're in the depths of depression and despair, you can't feel anything. I remember a story about a spiritual teacher. She's now quite popular, Mary Mannon Morrissey. And she tells the story in one of her books about when she was quite young. She became pregnant when she was 16. They married, very unhappy marriage. She had 3 children by the time she was 20. And she remembers holding her sweet baby. And she was so much in despair and depression that she couldn't even feel. She couldn't feel anything. She couldn't feel love for this child. She couldn't feel anything, and she wondered what in the world was wrong with her. And thankfully, she stumbled upon some teachings that were extremely helpful, that told her that she could change her thoughts. She could make her thoughts more positive. She practiced that, and she did. By practicing that, she came out of her depression. Now, she still said that she had a decade of poverty and financial woes and not knowing how to make it in the world, but it was the beginning of her turning her life around and to the point where she now gives lectures, writes books, and is quite successful. But I hope that not too many of you have felt these times of depression and hopelessness, and sometimes we may fall into a sense of boredom and not knowing what to do with our lives. We may, bring it up a level. If you can bring your thoughts up and bring your emotions up a level, you can come to be hopeful, maybe even optimistic, then have positive expectations and even enthusiasm and eagerness, and bring that up to passion and freedom, all the way up to joy, love, laughter, lightheartedness, which are our goals. Now, placed beside this chart, the spirals, because the way our lives look, we're not actually moving from one step to another in those steps. We're actually spiraling in consciousness up to the next level. So it's there's actually a man in Unity that talks about spiral dynamics. He's generally talking about the evolution of the consciousness of humanity, but he also talks about it on a personal level, how we are spiraling a little bit at a time out of these deep thoughts. So the emotional scale reminds us that joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, and love are what we aspire toward. Positive expectation, belief, hopefulness, and contentment are all movements toward the light. When fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness, we may not be able to jump straight to joy, but we can step onto the path that will take us there. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is to realize that we do have some control over our lives. We have some control. We have all the control over our thoughts. We just didn't know it. Eric Butterworth said that joy is an inner state. Charles Fillmore said you can find joy by replacing your negative thoughts with light-filled ones. And Mary Manning Morrissey said, "We all have times of despair, going through the deserts of life of Egypt. Just don't pitch a tent and stay there." Has anybody ever pitched a tent in a sad place before? Have you? But you finally came out of it, didn't you? I would like to ask you if anyone was brave enough to offer what brought them out of their state of despair. Does anyone want to offer what they were able to do that brought them out of it? Well, and we all do end up in times where we are either in deep grief for whatever reason, in despair, depression. Maybe we are in deep guilt over the way we've lived our lives up till now, and we want to change, and we can. We can. Any moment, our lives can change the moment the light bulb goes on and you decide it's going to. And it's just that simple. What brings you joy? Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Just quit it. Yeah, that's an old song. We don't want to hear it anymore. Yeah, that was on some country and western show, and I can't remember what it was. Hee-haw, hee-haw. You got it. Yeah, that's what that was. Now, I remember a story of another woman that talked about she had reached such a point of despair because she didn't seem to be able to change anything in her life. She was so depressed and seemed like everything in the world was coming down on her. Every single thing in the world had happened, and she just didn't know how to even get up in the morning, like Joan said. And this was decades ago when, does anybody remember Norman Vincent Peale? He was a traditional minister, but he had a definite positive alignment to his talks. He even wrote a book titled The Power of Positive Thinking. I believe that was back in the 70s or 80s, and I know for you young people, you can't even imagine those decades. But Norman Vincent Peale would be on television sometimes on a Sunday service. She said she was laying on the couch, couldn't get off the couch. Norman Vincent Peale was on the television talking about God and how to be spiritual is to be joyful. And he talked about how to change your thoughts. He was talking about the power of positive thinking on his regular Sunday program, and actually changed her life. She said those few words that he spoke that day, she took them in, and she said, well, if he says, this is a respected man, everybody loves him, everybody knows this man, he's been doing this for years. If what he says weren't true, then he wouldn't still be around saying this. There'd be enough detractors that would be proving him wrong. So she chose to believe it. Now let's see what I said. She chose to believe that, okay? She chose to believe that. It's a choice. As Glenn told us, you've got to be willing, right? Yeah. Glenn says you've got to be willing or you're not going to change. It was a choice. She chose to believe it. She said she thought about it for a while. She got up off the sofa like Tammy. She was sick of herself. And she says, I'm not living like this anymore. I'm going to choose a different thought, and my life is going to improve. And it did. And she went on to have a great several decades, and that changed her life. That one moment on the television changed her life. So how do we increase a sense of wonder in our lives? We started this earlier by talking about do the things that bring you joy. Those are sacred, those moments. I can tell you the moments when I am creating a Sunday service and I'm on my computer and I'm writing and then I'm creating my slides, and they are some of my most joyful. I love creating that way. I just love it. I love it. I love getting up here and talking to you on Sundays. I love it. And when I quit loving it, you're going to know. I guarantee you're going to know. You'll see it. You'll see it on my face. Remember what Diane Brandhorst said to me a couple of years ago. She and her husband, Bob, moved to Mexico. But I interviewed her during our summer series, and she said something that made me laugh. And she said, "Oh, Judy, I love it when you laugh. Your eyes look just like Zoe's." Zoe's her dog. When she's having her belly rubbed. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that sweet? But I loved when she told me that. And I'm glad that the joy can express through my smile in that way. I want to look like Zoe all the time. Having my belly rubbed. How about that? That was so sweet. I miss them, Bob and Diane. I hope they're, I'm sure he's getting up to trouble, whatever he's doing. We miss him. Maybe they'll come back and visit. But I know there's a story of Walt Disney, and you know he drew cartoons, and he couldn't find any work. Wherever he went, they didn't like him. One guy at a publisher finally told him, "You have no talent, man. You need to go get a job at a factory. You have no talent." That's Walt Disney. So he was at his all-time low. He was in a place, he said it shouldn't have even been rented. It was a basement. There were mice crawling across the floor, and he just started watching the mice. And he watched this one, and he started drawing him. He enjoyed it so much, he gave him a name, and he called him Mickey. And that's the beginning of that story. Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse and Disneyland and Universal. Not Universal, but all these other, well, kind of, because they were inspired by him, weren't they? All of them were. They were inspired by Walt Disney. And it all comes from the question that Tammy asked earlier. What brings you joy? What brings you joy? Find that. Do that. And you will have a fulfilling life. Lighten up. The bulletin said, holiness is not a stiff posture or a solemn face. It's the radiant ease of knowing that Spirit is alive in everything, everywhere. It's the even in laughter. Humor is one of the ways the divine reminds us that life is not meant to be endured. It's to be enjoyed. So I just ask you today to go out and have a really, really sacred life. Follow in the footsteps of all those who've been laughing their way all the way home. I hope you'll have a joyful week.